Members, 5 minutes. We're going to start in 5 minutes. Please come to the chamber. Members, please come to the chamber. That's my ball.
The House will come to order. Members, our prayer today will be given by Reverend Vernon Swift, who is the pastor of Elizabeth Baptist Church in Tuscaloosa and the guest of Representative Travis.
Father, your word teaches us that first of all, supplication, prayers, and giving of thanks be made to all men, for kings, and all those who are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. We thank you for the United States of America. Thank you for the state of Alabama, our governor and government officials, as they work to make the lives of your people healthy and prosperous. In the name of Jesus Christ, let justice run down as water and righteousness as a mighty stream. Bless mankind here and everywhere. We worship your sovereignty in the affairs of all men. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Members, today's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mallory Puckett. She's a sophomore at Lena High School, and the page of Representative Hussey. Clerk call roll.
Mr. Speaker, Almond, Baker, Bedsole, Blackshear, Bolton, Boyd, Bracy, Brinyard, Brown, Butler, Carnes, Chestnut, Clark, Klaus, Collins, Colvin, Crawford, Daniels, Datcher, Drummond, Dubose, Easterbrook, Ellis, England, Ensler, Estes, Faulkner, Fiddler, Fincher, Fort, Garrett, Gidley, Gavan, Gibbons, Gray, Hall, Hammett, Harbison, Harrison, Hassel, Hendricks, Hill, Hulk Jones, Hollis, Hulsey, Hurst, Ingram, Jackson, Jones, Keel, Kirkland, Lamb, Lands, Lawrence, Lee, Lipscomb, Lomax, Lovern, Marcus, McCampbell, McClammy, Mooney, Moore M, Moore P, Morris, Oliver, Paramore, Pascal, Pettis, Pringle, Rafferty, Ream, Reynolds, Rigsby, Robbins, Robertson, Ross, Sellers, Sells, Shaver, Shaw, Shiree, Simpson, Smith, Sorrell, Stodhagen, Sandridge, Starnes, Stringer, Stubbs, Tillman, Travis, Treadaway, Underwood, Wadsworth, Warren, Whit, Wharton, Wilcox, Wood D, Wood R, Woods, Yarborough.
Six members for answer roll. Quorum is present. The House is ready to transact business. The chair recognizes Representative Rigsby for a motion.
Thank you for recognition, Mr. Speaker. I move that we suspend the rules and allow floor privileges for Director Joseph Pelfrey, Dr. Kimberly Robinson, Mr. Scott Hall, and astronaut Larry DeLucas.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Permission granted. Representative Rigsby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate Space Day in Alabama, recognizing our state's pivotal role in the aerospace innovation and exploration. Home to Marshall Space Flight Center, Alabama has long been a leader in space technology, where groundbreaking missions continue to inspire the next generation. Today, as we look to the stars, with hope and excitement, let us reaffirm our commitment to pushing the boundaries of exploration, innovation, and discovery. Together, let us continue to reach for the stars and inspire future generations to dream big and reach to even greater heights. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to welcome to the floor today NASA Marshall Space Flight Center Director Joseph Pelfrey, CEO of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Dr. Kimberly Robinson, President of Teledyne Brown Engineering, Mr. Scott Hall, and astronaut Larry DeLucas, who flew on Space Shuttle Columbia in 1992. Each a driving force in Alabama's space legacy. At this time, I invite each of them to give brief remarks if they so choose.
Thank you so much. We are so pleased to be here at Alabama's Capitol to celebrate Space Day and the tremendous support and cooperation and economic impact of the aerospace industry on the great state of Alabama. As a state agency at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, we are so fortunate and we are blessed by your continued funding and support for our programs. We are the world's largest and longest running STEM camp, and we continue to work on workforce development to make sure that we are providing educational resources so that we are developing the workforce of the future and can corner the market on making sure that we are the ones that are putting our astronauts into deep space. I also want to say our economic impact is strong with jobs and tourism. We're the #1 tourism location in the state of Alabama. We have a $135 million economic impact every year, and we are shaping leadership through our programs. We continue to boldly move forward, and we are looking at an expansion of our main museum and campus and to develop the first permanent workforce development center for the state of Alabama. It is my privilege. Again, I want to recognize Dr. Larry DeLucas, a Birmingham native, up to celebrate with us today. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to Scott Hall, president of Teledyne Brown Engineering.
Thank you very much. Just very honored to be here today to represent not only my company, who employ thousands of people here in Alabama, but also to advance our country in both space defense and higher technology. The work being performed by these companies here today as a group for the Alabama space community actually employ hundreds of thousands of people here in Alabama that contribute heavy to the economy. And without them and their families and their support, and without your support, obviously it's a way that we continue to want to build Alabama for the future. And with that, I would like to introduce Joseph Pelfrey, who is Marshall Space Flight Center Director.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the legislature. It's a great day today to celebrate Space Day here on the Capitol. It's great pride that we can celebrate the contributions of this state that are woven throughout NASA's history and exploration and scientific discovery. NASA Marshall Space Flight Center is celebrating 65 years of calling Alabama home this year. And we're proud of the legacy that we've built with the people of this state and the partners of this state, the industry and academic partners and government leaders that have helped enable our mission to help us achieve some amazing accomplishments, beginning with the groundbreaking achievements of the Apollo administration to scientific discovery amongst the International Space Station to the elements we're leading today of the Artemis campaign to return humans to the moon for the first time in 50 years and eventually send humans to Mars. Across this great state, from Montgomery to Mobile and all the communities in between, companies and universities are helping enable what we do at NASA, contributing to the legacy of innovation and exploration that we have enjoyed for 65 years of calling Alabama home. So I want to thank you for your leadership and for your partnership in what we do and helping make this state be a great place to live, work, and play and help our nation achieve its goals in space exploration. Thank you.
Dr. DeLucas, would you like to say a few words? I think you've earned it. You've traveled farther than any of us.
Yeah, this is off the cuff, but you know, since I flew in space, after that I was chief scientist for the space station. After that, I spent a lot of time at UAB as a professor, and then I joined in 2006 the Aerospace Corporation, where I run a STEM program for them. I can tell you there is no better vehicle for getting young students interested in science and technology than to intrigue them with space. As a chemistry professor, I could go to a high school and give a presentation and everyone was throwing spitballs and falling asleep. But today, I can give that same presentation mixed in with my journey to space, talking about all the wonderful things we're doing today, and you can hear a pin drop in a large gymnasium. So I am a big proponent of STEM today, and at Space Camp, as you heard, there's no better way to get our young students interested in science and technology, and I think we'll all agree we need that today. So thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, we do have a resolution honoring Space Day, and if we could have that read and why that is being read, any members of the Madison County delegation, come on down to the floor so we can get a picture with our guests.
Mr. Clerk, let's read the resolution.
Whereas the state of Alabama has contributed numerous advancements to the world in science, technology, and rocket propulsion over the past 6 decades, including taking Americans to the moon. And whereas NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center has private suppliers in all 7 congressional districts, reaffirming the space industry serves a major economic development asset and technology magnet for Alabama and the Southeast. And whereas the partnership between Marshall Space Flight Center, U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Beyond Gravity, Blue Origin, KBR, Leidos Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Teledyne Brown Engineering, the Boeing Company, Raytheon RTX, Special Aerospace Services, United Launch Alliance, and many others across the state being critical innovation through continued advanced discoveries, STEM outreach, strengthening national security, deepening partnerships across the country and around the world, and inspiring a new generation of scientists, engineers, and explorers. And whereas Alabama is resolute in contributing to shape the workforce of the future through robust partnerships with academia, industry, government, and nonprofit, and acknowledge the establishment and success of the Alabama Aerospace Student Internship Program in its 5th year, designed to provide students across Alabama a pathway into the aerospace industry. And whereas Alabama continues to secure the nation's role as frontrunner in advancing industry, technology, and education to support global space innovations and exploration. And whereas NASA astronauts Clifton Williams, Henry Hartsfield, Kathy Thornton, James Voss, Mae Jemison, Jan Davis, and Catherine Heyer, all from Alabama, have spent over 320 days in space across 18 flights of the Marshall Managed Space Shuttle program. And whereas Alabamians are exceedingly proud of the distinguished accomplishments, the advances in space exploration, technology, and science it has produced to the benefit of all humanity. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that we hereby proclaim February 25th, 2025 as Space Day in the state of Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Thank you to my esteemed colleagues, and happy Space Day, Alabama. Thank you.
I'd like to recognize in the gallery today Point Clear Republican Women, Baldwin County, Point Clear, South Baldwin Republican Women, and Commissioner Billy Joe Underwood. They are the guests of Simpson, Fiddler, Givens, Easterbrook, Baker, Stringer, and Holt Jones. Let's give them a big hand. Thank y'all for being with us today. Also, we have with us today Escambia County Commissioner, Chairman Raymond Wiggins, Commissioner Larry White, and Brad Solomon, the guest of Hammett and Baker. Let's give them a big thank y'all for being with us today. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that leaves of absence be granted for absent members.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, absent members are excused. The chair further recognizes the gentleman from Lee, Chairman Lovern.
Mr. Speaker, I have a report.
House of Representatives, your Standing Committee on Rules begs leave to report that it has carefully examined the Journal of the House for the 8th legislative day and finds the same to be correct. Signed, Joe Lovern, Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the journal at length for the 8th legislative day be dispensed with.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, reading the journal is dispensed with. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Speaker Pro Tem, for purpose of making announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please remember every Tuesday morning, the Capitol Commission Weekly Bible Study is from 11 to 11:45 a.m. in room 602. That's on Tuesday. The Alabama Pharmacy Association reception is tonight from 5 to 7 p.m. at RSA Plaza Terrace. Alabama State University reception is at 5:30, the Nest in the USA Stadium. The Huntsville-Madison County Chamber of Commerce legislative reception is from 6 to 7:30 at the Renaissance. Marion Military Institute, go Marion, legislative reception is from 6 to 8 at Ravello's, the finest two-year college in the state. Wednesday, the Financial Planning Association will talk to a planner event from 2 to 5 p.m. in room 602 and room 603. The Alabama Port Authority legislative reception is from 5 to 7 Wednesday at Ravello. The Alabama Installment Lenders Association reception is from 5 to 8 Wednesday at RSA Plaza. And please don't forget, every Thursday morning, ALCAP prayer breakfast is from 7 to 8 at the RSA Plaza on the 6th floor on Thursday morning.
Mr. Pro Tem, you're further recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that when we adjourn today, we leave the journal open to allow the clerk to complete his paperwork, and we reconvene on Thursday, February the 27th at 10 a.m. Thursday.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails. Clerk will now receive those reports throughout the day. The House now is in position to introduce bills and resolutions. Chair recognizes a gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson.
Thank you so kindly, Mr. Speaker. I just want to ask Pro Tempora, who's teaching that Bible class? I want to know if I want to know who's going to be talking to me about the Bible. Mr. Pringle. Everybody, you can't listen to everybody speaking from the word because everybody don't know the word. But I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to sit down. Stony the road we trod. Bitter the chastening rod, felt in days when hope unborn have died. And yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We've come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. And out from a gloomy path, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we are celebrating Black History Month, and I gave you a portion of the second stanza of a poem written by James Wellington Johnson in 1900. And I think that you would just have mercy upon us as we move forward on this 25th day of February. And we celebrated President's Day on yesterday, last week. Anyway, we are in February, and we'll thank you for the moment that you've given us to speak. Thank you. Still want to know who's teaching that Bible class.
Get him off the line. We'll find out. I'd like to recognize Miss McMillan's class from Northside High School, guest of Representative Brinyard and Bolton. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you for being with us today. Also in the gallery is the board of the Space and Rocket Center. If you would stand up and let us recognize the board members for the Space and Rocket Center. Thank you for your work. We certainly appreciate the work you do for our state. The House now will receive a resolutions report from the Committee on Rules. Clerk will read the resolutions. Clerk will call the first uncontested local bill on the regular calendar.
On page 23 of the calendar, House Bill number 73 by Representative Sellers relating to Jefferson County.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 59 ayes, 0 nays. The BR has been adopted. Question now for the body's final passage. HB 73. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 25 yeas, 0 nays. HB 73 has passed. I'd like to recognize some special guests on the floor. Our former Speaker of the House, Mac McCutcheon. Let's give Mac a big hand. Mac, thank you for being with us today. And now the Chairman of the Madison County Commission. Also, we have guest Elaine Beach, former member of ours in the House here. And also, I seen Miss Connie Rowe, a special guest, former House member. We are certainly glad to have them back with us today. Thank you guys for being with us. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, House Bill number 101 by Representative Shiree relating to Mobile County.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 62 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Question now for the body is final passage of HB 101. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 16 ayes, 0 nays. HB 101 has passed. Mr. Clerk, let's call off the next bill.
On page 13 of the calendar, House Bill number 104 by Representative Drummond relating to Class II municipalities.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 65 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Question now is final passage of HB 104. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 29 ayes, 0 nays. HB 104 has passed. Clerk, call up the next bill.
On page 23 of the calendar, House Bill number 269 by Representative Treadaway relating to the town of Morris.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 68 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Question now is passage of HB 269. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 27 ayes, 0 nays. HB 269 has passed. Chair recognizes the gentleman from the lead, Chairman Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a resolution.
Clerk, see the resolution.
House Resolution number 90 by the House Rules Committee, the special order calendar.
Move for adoption.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is adopted. Clerk, call first bill on the special order calendar.
On page 2 of the calendar, House Bill number 159 with substitute by Representative Lovern relating to the Alabama Space Science Exhibit Commission.
Chairman Lovern, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 159 and its substitute is just an updated language for the U.S. Space and Rocket Center that will bring it into today and the future as far as our makeup of our board, the information that we need to help continue to make updates for the future. I've passed out information to each member that spells out the key components of what we're looking to change, and it adds important diversity language, and certainly will hope that this updated language will make our goal of preserving the Alabama artifacts tied to space and anything tied to educating our future astronauts and science and mathematician engineers will be inspired by what we do at our Space and Rocket Center. And with that, if there's no question, I ask for BIR.
Chair recognizes a lady from Jefferson County, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank you for bringing this bill. I read it, and it's a good bill. But the reason that I come forth is because with all of the federal cuts that we are experiencing, I think a couple Thursdays ago, my concern is for us to be prepared that if it looked like it's going to be some kind of major cuts to our space and rocket program, that the state is prepared to come in to kind of keep them going when we realize all of the work, when you talk about the space program and how important the state of Alabama has been throughout the years when you're talking about the space program, space exploration, and everything else that's concerned with it, that we will be prepared if we end up with just a minor hiccup, that we think ahead and say how we can make sure that we don't have, any prolonged time where we might have a deficit there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the lady. Question for the body now is the adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 98 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, we had one change made in committee, so I have a substitute. It just added some language from our Treasury, and that's all that was. For that, I'd offer the substitute.
Okay, you heard the explanation of the substitute. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. Substitute has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with that, I'd ask for final passage as substituted.
That is the question, is the final passage as substituted. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Parker, Moore, you vote Miss Hall, please. This is in her district. She's going to want to. Got it? You got it? Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. HB 159 as substitute has passed.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker and members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 18 of the calendar, House Bill number 147 by Representative Pettis relating to state government.
Chairman Pettis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does is give our volunteer fire departments and our rescue squads be able to buy locally if the bid is not more than 5% of the low bid. With that, I call for the BIR.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson. While he's making his way down here, I got a couple of guests in the audience. Emmanuel Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Go ahead. You got, Mr. Pettis. I forgot exactly what you just got through saying when I really was talking to someone.
What this bill does, it adds 5 words: volunteer fire department and rescue squad. Right now, the district attorneys and sheriffs have a chance, if it's buy locally, as long as the low bid is not more than 5%, they can buy locally instead of on a state bid. This just gives them the same opportunity.
So when you say exempt
Now, if they still have to go low bid, then they can go up to 5% over the low bid if it's locally.
If it's local.
Yes, sir.
And so if it's not local, they go to the regular.
Yes, sir.
Thank
It's
you.
only if it's local.
Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks, gentlemen. I think I got this right now. Our guests are Emmanuel Mennonite School from Hartsville, Alabama. The guests are Terry Collins, Scott Hagan, and Parker Moore. Thank you for being with us today. What's for the body now is final passage of HB 147. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 99 ayes, 0 nays. HB 147 is passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, House Bill number 163 with substitute by Representative Faulkner relating to the income tax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill is to allow companies in Alabama to be able to deduct their research and development expenses in the year that they take them and not have to amortize it over 5 years. And will help our businesses who do that stay here and be better tax consequences for them to allow them to decouple from the federal act. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would move for the BR.
Ask questions. The passage of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 97 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR has passed. Representative Faulkner.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker and members, we did have a committee sub that I need to adopt real quickly. All the committee sub does is allow this to be retroactive to January 1st, 2024. Other states that have decoupled have made theirs retroactive. It's simply allowing, the sub allows us to be retroactive to January 1st, 2024. And with that, I'd move for the adoption of the committee substitute.
Yeah, you've heard the explanation of the committee substitute. Representative McCampbell, you speaking on the sub or the bill? Okay. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ringo, Representative McCampbell, speaking on the committee sub.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
When will this bill take effect? I know this is a House bill. It would have to pass now. And when would it take effect?
So I was looking at that with our fiscal folks before I came up here, and it says this act shall become effective on October 1st, 2025. But the retroactive effect would go back to January 1, 2024. So I wondered if it made any sense to change the effective date to be immediately upon the governor's signature, if that would help people filing their returns.
I'm not an accountant, but I know there are a few of them in here, and I think you are going to run into a problem with an effective date of the 25th to make it retroactive for a date of January 1st of 24. When corporate
25.
You said you were going to make it retroactive to.
Yeah, but then the effective date is, you just said 2024. The effective date's October 1, 2025.
Yeah. Okay.
I knew what you meant.
Well, you're getting me confused now. But all I'm saying is that if it's going to be effective in October, most corporate taxes will be filed in March of this year, and that's for the 2024 year. So if we're going to catch that, I think we might need to look at that effective date.
I completely agree and caught it right before I came up here. Very good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. The question for the body now is adoption of the committee sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 99 ayes, 0 nays. Committee sub has been adopted.
I'd move for final passage if no further questions.
That's questions. Final passage as substituted. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock machine. Recorded votes. 99 ayes, 0 nays. 1 abstention. HB 163 has passed as substituted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call up the next bill.
On page 25 of the calendar, House Bill number 195 by Representative Ream relating to motor vehicles.
Representative Ream, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 195, under existing law, any disabled veteran whose physical disability exceeds 50% may obtain a special disabled veteran license plate. This bill would allow any disabled veteran whose physical disability is at least 50% to obtain a special disabled veteran license tag. And with that, I ask for the BIR.
Question for the body is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. The BIR has been adopted. Representative Ream.
And with that, Mr. Speaker, I ask for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend the gentleman on this bill, but I have a question as relates to from the federal. How the impact of all federal workers, veteran administration being laid off or fired, how's it going to affect your bill with
No effect.
when the services that they're going to be trying to get to them? I read it. They're complaining now.
This is a state bill. It doesn't involve federal.
Veterans, you said veterans, right?
Yeah, but it's only for veterans who want to apply for disabled veterans tag, license tag, which is a state.
Oh, just for the tag. I'm thinking about health care. Great.
And nothing to do with their health.
So this is really good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Sellers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. With the gentleman yield. Can you go back over what this bill does? Because I heard some numbers dealing with the availability of tag for disabled vet at a certain percentage. Can you go back over?
So presently, to qualify for the reduced cost veterans disabled tag, you have to be above 50% disabled. Now, so basically that's 51% or more. But the VA, does these in 10% increments. So basically now you have to be 60% disabled to qualify. And I'm just bringing it down to 50% or more.
For some odd reason, I thought it was at 30%. So maybe I was being corrected.
Yeah, so now if you're disabled and you're under 50, I think you get one crack at,
Yes.
at it, but then this is for perpetual reduced fee.
Great. Okay, I'm just getting
Yep.
clarity because
I understand. Yep,
got it.
appreciate it. Good question. Hear you.
Question for the body is final passage of HB 195. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. HB 195 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks to the gentleman. We have a guest in the office of Representative Hulsey. Christy Nelson is with us today. Let's give her a big hand. Thank you for being with us today. And she is the guest of Representative Hulsey. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 19 of the calendar, House Bill number 205 by Representative Underwood relating to sales and use taxes.
Representative Underwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is strictly a technical bill. Use tax is imposed tax on tangible property that's brought into Alabama where the seller did not collect the sales tax. It's a use tax, but it's very, very similar to a sales tax. Through the years, the sales tax and the use tax was coded in different places in the code. This pulls it into one section so that they're treated similarly going forward. And with that being the description, I call for the BR.
Next question is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Recorded vote 102 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call for final vote.
That is question is final passage of HB 205. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Recorded vote 101 ayes, 0 nays. HB 205 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 20 of the calendar, House Bill number 287 with substitute by Representative Gavan relating to municipal police departments.
Representative Van, you're recognized.
Help me up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. I rise today, HB 287. This is a very important bill. All the bills that we carry, however, everybody knows that they are very important. But this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, I got to get some.
Ms. Gavan, you want us to go on, move on until you get ready? Okay. Ask me to call. Okay, just ask.
Thank you. I'm just coming in.
The request carried over. Call the chair. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? This has been carried over. Clerk, call the next bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, House Bill number 261 by Representative Ellis relating to the Department of Insurance.
Representative Ellis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Members, HB 261 is a Department of Insurance bill. It clarifies that non-resident surplus line brokers are not required to carry a bond in favor of the state. Mr. Speaker, there's no questions. I call for the BIR.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Recorded vote 98 ayes, 0 nays. BR has passed. Chairman Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there's no further questions, I'll call for final passage.
That is question's final passage of HB 261. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Recorded vote 102 ayes, 0 nays. HB 261 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Clerk, call next bill.
On page 11 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 43 by Senator Singleton relating to the boards of registrars.
Senator Wood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 48 has 3 parts that affect the Board of Registrars in our state. Currently, our registrars are responsible for managing over 3.7 million voter files, and many live below the poverty level in Alabama. Senate Bill 48 will increase the pay and give them a $35 a day raise. In the last 20 years, they've only had a $30 a day raise. Senate Bill 48 also enhances the qualifications to become an appointed registrar, including good communication skills to work with the public, knowledge of computers, compatible work programs, and the ability to run reports and office equipment. The third part of the bill requires the registrar's office to post their hours of operation. And Mr. Speaker, with that explanation, I'd ask for the BIR.
That is questions adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. The BR has been adopted. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there's no further questions, I'd ask for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Madison. Chairman Reynolds, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Wood. Just wanted to come up here. Won't take but a second, but thank you for working on this. I think you started this conversation back in the summer.
Yes, sir.
But I ask you, if you look at the history on this bill, I think it went back about 3 years.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate your work and working with our group there in Madison County and throughout Alabama. And it's good legislation, much needed. Thank you very much.
Can you wait just a minute? Because I have to thank you because you did the yeoman's work finding us the raise in the budget. Thank you and your committee for everything you did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. What's for the body now is final passage of SB 48. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. HB 48 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please recognize we have Board of Registrars in the gallery from all over the state today. Could you
If we
please
have a board of
recognize
registrars,
them?
y'all stand up. Let's recognize.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for what you do for our state.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Thank you, lady. Clerk, call up the next bill.
On page 13 of the calendar, House Bill number 94 by Representative Gavan relating to crimes and offenses.
Representative Gavan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill we brought last year to amend the code with regards to human trafficking, to bring about human trafficking in the in the second degree, adding the definition as to online predators. Those are called the pimps, and those who solicit those who are young that solicit men and women online for the purpose of human trafficking. What it has been determined is that a lot of times human trafficking actually begins online. So this definition would also add the definition with regards to online predators and in that particular code section, Mr. Speaker. So with that, I call for the BRR.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Shelby, Representative Mooney.
Thank you, sir. Representative Gavan, thank you for bringing the legislation. I serve on the...
About to fall out right now. Come here, I need to be resuscitated. Did y'all hear that? Come on.
I work on the Human Trafficking Task Force as representative from the House, and I know that it's my considered opinion that this is helpful to what we're trying to do, so I appreciate you bringing it.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank
for anybody who doesn't understand, when your wife tells you to not be talking and you stand up, she may cut you up.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Thank you so much. Thank you.
What's for the body's adoption of the BR? Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 100 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Representative Gavan.
Move for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Representative Stringer.
Where is?
Speaker Gill. Thanks, sir.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
No, you're okay. I was just going to thank you for bringing this bill, and anything that we can do to strengthen the laws to relate around the trafficking of our youth and anyone is very important. I've had the opportunity to work on some of these cases in law enforcement over the years, and we've had a bigger problem probably on the Mississippi-Alabama line where they're bringing the young girls over from Mississippi. And
Absolutely.
So in pretty much these smaller agencies are for us working this, but I just want to thank you for bringing this and strengthening our laws.
I appreciate you and what you've done in law enforcement. Listen, it's a serious issue. I know there's a bill that we will debate later on this session regarding cell phones, but what is happening, you have some people who think that trafficking just starts by the snatching of a person or in the airport. But everybody now is into social media, those social media platforms, and we're finding more and more where little girls, some even 8 years old, fall into human trafficking, starting with something as simple as a phone or the computer and an online predator. So whatever we can do to strengthen the code, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring this legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the cases that I've been involved in, they're manipulating these young girls because of drug habits or issues.
Exactly.
And they're bringing them over. And then some of the rumors and the information that we get that's, a lot of times hard to corroborate.
It's hard to-
Even talks about the death of some of these young girls, and they're just being buried wherever they're being buried.
Yes.
So very tragic, very sad situation. But
And
thank you again.
Yeah, it is. And again, more parental involvement always helps. I say this all the time, but definitely, I think this will be a good step in being able to catch these predators. As Judge Hill said, they are pimps, online pimps, and that's what we're going to treat them as.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Reverend Treadway.
Well, I tell you, this is hard to come down here on a bill like this because you're carrying it. But you two going to pay attention?
Oh.
This is very important to me on transparency. So, as you know, for the last few years, I have been trying to get
This isn't the
numbers.
transparency bill. The speaker, I think, may call it back up. It's coming up.
Wait a minute, which bill is this?
This is 94 on the human trafficking.
Well, you told me to come down on 94. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. This is the next bill.
God,
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Garrett.
that was a gavel down moment, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentlelady yield?
Yeah.
I support the strengthening of this area of law enforcement, but I've learned from you to ask for clarity. So one thing I don't understand is what the makes this a Class B felony.
Yeah, because
what is it now? What is a
it's
Class B
not
felony?
identified in the code. It's already that, but it's this particular definition. So we're strengthening the definition to cover the online piece or the computer, phones, things of that nature.
And what is the penalty for Class B felony?
You were looking at anywhere from 10 to 20 years up. You always count the penalties from 1 year to 10 years, from 10 years to 20 and up.
Okay,
So whenever you're doing an ABC, yes, sir.
Well, I certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for the body now is final passage of HB 94. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Court to vote 103 ayes, 0 nays. HB 94 has passed. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 7 of the calendar, House Bill number 250 by Representative Underwood relating to elections.
Representative Underwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 250 is a bill of simplification and providing some clear guidelines on our statement of economic interest that we all have to file every 4 years. Currently, those are rolling deadlines. This makes them more solid by giving basically 3 different things. First is if you are affiliated with a political party, you have 5 days to submit it within the deadline to qualify. If you're independent, you have 5 days from the primary election. And then the last piece says if you have already filed one for another reason, there's no need to file another one. Just provide proof of that, and it will be accepted as your filing requirement. And so this is a clarity bill, and I call for the BR.
Chair recognizes the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Made you walk too far. I should be on the other side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the gentleman yield.
Yes,
Part of
ma'am.
my reason is because I was preoccupied, so I'm not quite sure.
Yes, ma'am.
We're talking about the economic interest that we file in April or
Every 4
January.
years. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, every 4 years.
We file them before our election time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
so, yes, and so you're saying in that the date that's given, are you expanding the time?
No, we're making them more concise. They're like rolling deadlines based on certain things. With this, it just says it's this or it's this and nothing else. It's 5 days from the two. If you're a party, you have 5 days from the bulk of it's on page 10. But if you're affiliated with a party, then you have 5 days from the date to qualify. If you're not a party, it's 5 days from the primary because then you've got the general election coming up.
I think that's the part I was missing. The,
Yes, ma'am.
The party
It's a little
versus
confusing, yes.
Independent. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote.
Thank you, brother.
Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted. Reverend Underwood.
I call for final.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ringo, Reverend McCampbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentleman yield?
Absolutely.
Okay, is this for your city races, your municipal races?
Yeah, I think they all have to file one.
They all, yeah, I understand that. But they don't have primaries.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said the city races don't have primaries, but
That's
if
true.
they are a new candidate, they would have 5 days from what?
Well, that's a good question. Those remain unchanged. I just focused on the changes for the ones with primaries. So,
Okay, so
But
if
you're right,
I'm-
that's
if I'm a new candidate
yeah,
in a state race,
yes, sir.
then I have 5 days from I guess from the primary or from the. Explain
Sure,
that again.
sure.
I'm trying
So,
to make sure I understand.
I understand, yes, sir. So if you're a member of a party, which most are, but not all, if you're a member of a party, then you have your submission is within 5 days of the date to qualify. So there's qualification dates that are set up by each party. If that date is on the 5th, you have till the 10th to file your statement of economic interest.
Okay.
If you're not a party member and you just say, I'm going to run as an independent, then you have 5 days from the date of the primary election. So now the primaries are done, so now we know who's going to be in each of those two parties. So now the independent says you have 5 days from that day to file, and then that's who will be represented on the ballot for the general election. So it's 5 days and 5 days.
And that's also the case for our county elections, like probate judge
Yes, sir.
and all.
That's right.
All of that.
That's right.
And in that, if you indeed you're already elected and you file in April as we have to do, then are we still going to be? We don't have to file again before. If we're running again, we don't have to file again, right?
Yeah, this says, like, if you've already filed one for another reason,
April.
all you have to do is provide proof of that you filed it to the office, and you're good to go. You don't have to go through the whole process again. Just trying to
Okay.
make it simple.
All right.
Those are good questions. It's
Appreciate
a
it.
little, yes, sir, it's a little tricky.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Chair thanks the gentleman. The question for the body now is final passage of HB 250. Clerk unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Recorded vote 100 ayes, 0 nays. HB 250 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Clerk, call up the next bill.
On page 20 of the calendar, House Bill number 57 by Representative Halsey relating to city boards of education.
Representative Halsey.
Mr. Speaker, I move we carry this bill over a call of the chair.
Okay, you've heard the system carried over, call the chair. All in favor say aye. Aye. Bill's been carried
Thank you.
over. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, House Bill number 106 with substitute by Representative Brown relating to catastrophic savings accounts.
Chairman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have House Bill 106, which is catastrophic savings accounts. In 2012, the legislature set up catastrophic savings accounts for your homeowners policies. Allows you to put money into either a mutual fund or a savings account, and then use that if you have a wind damage to your house to help pay for your deductible. Mr. Speaker, I call for the BIR.
That is question is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. BR has been adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Don't we adopt the sub? Okay. Yes, sir. On the substitute, all we did is we took out just a couple little lines in there and made a couple of grammatical changes, nothing of relevance. Call for adoption of the sub. Call for adoption of the sub.
Yeah, you heard the explanation of the sub. Question for the by now is adoption of the committee sub. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 101 ayes, 0 nays. Sub has been adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call for final passage.
Question for the body is final passage. Clerk will unlock the machines. All those in favor so vote aye. All opposed vote nay. Clerk will lock the machines. 101 yeas, 0 nays, and the bill receives final passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Clerk, call the next bill.
On page 27 of the calendar, House Bill number 88 by Representative Starnes relating to the Board of Pardons and Paroles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 88 is a department bill for the Alabama Bureau of Pardons and Parole, and it does the following. This bill will recognize probation and parole officers as state law enforcement officers. They are already APO certified. They receive benefits. They're able to participate in the Alabama Peace Officers Annuity, and they receive subsistence pay and hazardous duty pay for retirement. They receive 1 year for 5 years. And there is no physical note on this bill. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move for the BIR.
Question for the body is for the BIR on HB 88. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. Clerk will unlock the machines. Clerk will lock the machines and record the votes. 102 yeas, 0 nays, and Representative Starnes.
Mr. Speaker, I move for final passage of House Bill 88.
Question for the body is final passage. All of what? Hold on, we have a light on. Representative Morris.
Thank you. Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you explain that just a little bit more in detail? Because I'm just trying to see if there is going to be any unintended consequences with this bill.
No, ma'am. There's no physical note. It's just basically probation officers want to be recognized as state law enforcement. Currently, we have the Department of Corrections in Aaliyah, and we do the same functions as they do. So we just want to be recognized as state law enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Question for the body is final passage. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. Clerk will unlock the machines. Clerk will lock the machines. 102 yeas, 0 nays, and the bill has received final passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the body.
Clerk will call the next bill.
On page 22 of the calendar, House Bill number 84 by Representative Woods, relating to the Board of Chiropractic Examiners.
Representative Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill is brought on behalf of the Board of State Chiropractic Examiners. It allows the board to have a more efficient election process of their membership and also modernizes our state law to reflect national board policies that happened over 28 years ago. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'd move for the BIR.
Question for the body is the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machines. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. Clerk will lock the machines. 103 yeas, 0 nays, and Representative Woods.
I'd ask for final passage.
Question for the body is final passage. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. Representative Hall, saw a light.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did not do my due diligence in reading my bills
I understand.
before. Tell me other methods for sending the notices and ballots. What is the method now, and then what are the other methods
It's
that you're
currently
talking
mail,
about?
mail voting, mail-in voting. Currently, this would allow them to use electronic delivery via email to be able to send out the ballots and then receive them, so they could have more participation amongst their members.
Okay. As their process for their voting process, so the person doesn't necessarily have to be present
No,
in
ma'am.
the room.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Representative Hall, are you done? Okay. Question for the body is final passage on HB 84. Clerk will unlock the machines. Clerk will lock the machines. 100 yeas, 0 nays, and the bill has received final passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Clerk will call the next bill.
On page 14 of the calendar, House Bill number 238 with substitute by Representative Moore P., related to convicted felons.
Representative Moore, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill is a pardons and parole bill that will presume rehabilitation for individuals with an order of limited relief, limiting the automatic disqualification from occupational licenses, and establish a process for determining eligibility, restrictions, and when a felony conviction can bar licensure. It grants an employer immunity in certain cases, and it also mandates that the Board of Pardons and Parole to issue certificates of employability to eligible parolees to aid in job placement. I want to say this is for non-violent felonies only. It does not pertain to violent felons or sex offenders.
Question for the body is the BIR. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed vote no. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine and record the votes. There are 96 yeas, 0 nays, and 3 abstentions. House bill passes.
Well, we got
right, that was a BIR. Now we're on to final passage.
There is a sub.
Have a sub? Sorry.
Yeah, we
You
have-
explain your substitute?
Committee sub and judiciary. The sub is granting immunity for the medical boards and for interstate compacts. Because there was a couple of instances there across state lines that could be conflicting.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Talladega, Representative Robbins.
Right, he's got another amendment.
Okay.
So we had
Gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the recognition. Now, what you was telling me that your bill is giving convicted felons opportunities to work. That's what you're doing.
It is, yes, sir.
And I'm glad to hear you say that because we've been trying to get that done. Those who are not sexually offended will not be allowed this opportunity. But I always have believed in a second chance.
Yes, sir.
And here in Alabama, we have like to throw away the key when we lock somebody up. And instead of rehabilitating them, getting them prepared for the return to society. Now, what does this do? You didn't say anything about restoring voting rights.
No, sir, that is not part of this bill.
No, I'm just asking. I'm asking a good question here. You want to give them back their opportunity to work? What about their voting rights?
Well, that's something if you want to.
I'm just asking you this now. I want you to. I don't want you. I'm not saying I'm bringing a bill on that. Because there's always already a mechanism in place. But I'm talking to you as a representative of the representative, as a citizen of the state, as a person who want to empower the people. You want to give them left hand, but you want to give them the right hand. Let's give them don't you want to give them their full opportunity to restore unto them, make them whole? Isn't that what the Lord said? Do you want to be made whole? Aren't we ought to make them whole completely, as much as possible? Am I right?
Well, that doesn't pertain to my bill, but that's something you and I can discuss.
You see, you're trying to get away from. You're trying to get out of this. I'm not gonna let you out that easy because this is very important. I like you. We talk about things, but when you think about a person that has fallen off the wagon and have wronged someone, and we have forgiven them, and they have paid their dues, and we're going to restore them so they can get back to their families and be productive again. And that part of the whole system is to make sure that they can carry out that other thing, a part of being a full citizen, is to vote. That's being you talking.
Well, like I said,
I know this bill has nothing to do with that.
And that would be something that I'd be willing to sit down and discuss with you.
But right now, it's about just giving them a job. Well,
which 95% of them that are incarcerated now are going to get out at some point.
Exactly.
So what are we going to do as a state to try and prevent that recidivism?
Ooh, man, we're on the same page. We've been reading the same book when it comes to that. These young people at graduation over at the prison there in Perry County, they go to school. They have that last 6 months, 6 weeks of their training, get their certificate. And then when you apply for that application, then you get the application, you say, have you ever been convicted? Then you say yes, then the door is slammed, shut. No, and what you expect people to do when the door is shut and they've done everything that they could do to restore themselves? This bill is going to help, and I like that. But then you want to say when they go to vote, you want to say, well, you can't vote because
appreciate you supporting the bill.
I love it, and I appreciate you, and it's a good bill. I'm grateful to see that happen. Thank you for bringing it. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. The question for the body now. Whoops.
We have an amendment.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from. Wait a minute. Are we on the sub now? We got to pass the substitute first. Question for the body is passage of the sub. Clerk will unlock the machine. The members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 99 ayes, 0 nays. Substitute has been adopted. Representative Moore.
Mr. Speaker, there is an amendment.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Henry, Representative Ream.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for recognition. Representative Moore, I like this bill. I really do. And I just want you to, because I couldn't hear earlier, articulate how this has protections for like sex offenders and all that.
Yes, so this bill will exclude sex offenders and violent felons from participating in this and prevent them from getting a credentialing.
Yeah. So in my opinion, we have a workforce problem. This helps with that. It helps rehabilitating felons. I really appreciate you bringing this bill. I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Talladega, Representative Robbins.
I have an amendment to bring to the bill.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill number 238 by Representative Robbins.
Representative Robbins, explain your amendment, please.
It simply strikes that it removes the burden from being on the circuit clerk to the court if there's a challenge to someone's licensure, and it removes these requirements from the medical association, banking, and insurance. So insurance, banking, and medical won't fall under these requirements.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the amendment. How do you see the amendment?
Favorable amendment.
Okay, the sponsor sees it as a friendly amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 91 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment has been adopted.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for final passage.
Chair recognizes the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask a question for the young man that brought the amendment.
Yes, ma'am. Representative Robbins, you come down here and talk to Ms. Hall about your amendment.
Thank you. So
I'm sorry, Ms. Hall. I missed your line, I guess. I apologize for that.
that's all right. I can talk loud. You indicated in your comments that this was making sure that the licensure, like individuals or groups that doing licensure, that they would not have to do this. Did I misunderstand what you were saying?
Right. What it would do is, can I see the amendment? I'll tell you the exact wording. I don't want. But that any licensure. So we'll replace line 252 on page 9 with the following. Any licensure requirement imposed by Title 27, Title 8, or Title 5 or by federal law. So it'll just basically say that.
Go back since you have that. We're replacing line what? 252.
Right. We're replacing line 252. And what we are saying is
So this section does not apply. See, I didn't think this section applied to licensure requirements.
right. This was a request made by the medical association. It's more just a clarification, and so.
Okay, so work with me right here since you're the attorney. So this section, I'm starting at 248. It said the do not apply to any licensure requirement imposed by an interstate license compact or other interstate mutual recognition license requirement imposed by a law to which Alabama is subject. So we're talking about Alabama or to any licensure requirement imposed by federal law. Now, are you saying that when you're removing
Yeah. Well, really, what it is that it's to make sure, because of the federalist system that we have, and what the reason we say our federal law, it's the licensing that some of those industries are, how they are licensed, that we cannot overstep federal law. And so we're just tying ourselves in by saying any licensure requirement. So where it says the nature and seriousness of the crime for which the individual is convicted, right there, we're replacing line 52 and saying for which any licensure requirement imposed by Title 27, 8, 5 are by federal law. So if your license is given by any kind of federal law,
Right.
we can't impose any additional restrictions. We
give me an
can't, but-
example?
Well, how about we talk about another part of the amendment?
Well, I want to talk about because this, if we're already, if it says imposed by interstate compact, all of that, the state. I'm just trying to see what was the difference that you're making beyond 9252.
So a board, from reading the bill, the board has the ability to the board can make a decision.
Right.
So what we're saying is you have to remove anything from Title 27, 8, 5, or federal law in that decision making
Well, hold
because
up. So you're saying if a board is making a decision on whether or not an individual qualifies for a particular license in the state of Alabama that's served in our prison.
right, you're saying that they will make a case-by-case basis. So the following factors on a case-by-case basis. And then it says the nature and seriousness of the crime for which the individual is convicted. So we're saying is replacing line 52 to say the nature and seriousness of the crime for which any license requirement imposed by 27, 8, 5 are by federal law. So we're saying
28.
we will still consider the nature and seriousness of that crime, but up and to the point to where we don't interfere with federal law. And these in 27, 8, or 5, we could have been violating federal law by giving the state board the authority to give them a license or revoke a license. Because if you commit a federal crime, the federal law might say you cannot have an occupational license based upon the violation of this federal law. And so we're trying not to supersede federal law here.
But my point is, Mr. Moore, you're interrupting my question.
He was just showing me something that kind of what we were saying is that like the securities, if you get a license through securities.
But as I read this, all of this is you're starting on line 248. And remember now.
Well, it's line 252, ma'am.
Down to 252.
Right.
It seemed to me that it was already taking care of what you're talking about as it relates to federal law. I'm just trying to make sure I am clear.
Well, I think you're right. It's already taken care of, but it's just clarifying that we cannot, like for securities.
May I see that to see what
Yes,
the
ma'am. You
clar-
can see it back.
Any license requirement imposed by Title 24 or by federal law. So talk to me about then Title 27, Title 8, and Title 5. What are those?
Well, those are dealing with insurance, which would be securities,
Right.
Banking, and medical.
That makes sense.
All right.
Thank you. I got it.
Well, it's just saying that we're not violating any federal law. So, like, we can't give a license if the federal government already says you can't. So we can't then still give it. Yeah.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Blunt, Representative Standridge.
Parker. What's the speed on the bill? Sorry. So do we need to pass this?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got a question.
Sure.
Can you go over again which ones are not part of this, like the felons that are not part of this bill?
Sure. So this bill only pertains to nonviolent felons. Violent felons are not permitted, and those with a sexual criminal record are not permitted as well.
Okay. So I guess my question and what I was thinking about, and I don't know the answer, if somebody has a conviction, a felony conviction, and let's say it's burglary, say it's burglaries, breaking in houses, breaking into somebody's home or business, could that person still qualify for a license like with an alarm company?
No. So this bill, the restrictions on it state you cannot get a credentialing in a field that you were incarcerated for.
Okay, that was my question. So if it's something that has to do with that type of crime,
Correct.
even though it's nonviolent,
Correct.
then it would be excluded.
Correct.
Does the board make that decision when they look at it? How does that work?
It's up to the board. Yeah.
So they'd have that leadway to not allow that license.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Which for the body is passage of HB 238. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote.
Arnold, speak up one too many times.
Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 97 ayes, 0 nays. HB 238 is amended, has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have been asked to open it up for co-sponsors.
Okay, Ms. Clerk, let's open it up for co-sponsors. Like we got 42 co-sponsors. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Let's call up the next bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, House Bill number 266 with substitute by Representative Woods relating to the REACH Act.
Representative Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill we have named the REACH Act, Restoring Educational Attainment of Completing High School. This bill addresses a segment of our population that's falling between the cracks, and we believe we can help them pursue their educational pathway or career pathway by aligning a couple of things that this bill does. This bill requires the State Department to report to the adult ed programs across our state the students who are dropping out so that we can reach them and bring them back into a pathway. It also codifies the Alabama High School diploma option as an alternative for individuals 18 or older. With that, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for the BIR.
You recognize the gentleman from Talladega, Representative Hurst.
I just want to say how thankful I am for you bringing this bill. Through the years, this has been discussed over and 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 beat to death. And finally, we've got some people like yourself and other people that are looking at the crisis we have with kids that don't graduate from high school and need to learn a trade as well as get an education. You put it and bundle it all together. I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, thanks, the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Clark, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition, and thank you for bringing this legislation. Could you tell me how does this differ from the GED?
This is a non-traditional high school diploma option. It's already in existence, and what this does, it has the same weight as a regular high school diploma has. If you went through regular K-12 and completed your diploma, we offer that through the adult ed programs in the state currently, and so this will allow you to participate in that program at age 18 instead of having to wait till age 19. So you don't have to wait quite as long after you've dropped out at age potentially 17 to enroll.
Okay. Now, if can you move on if you want to go into college? 4
Oh,
years?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's like G. Okay.
Absolutely.
Great bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the gentleman yield.
Yes, ma'am.
And you and I have had a short conversation relative to this. I certainly have no problem with the bill, but I do say that at some point we've got to challenge those things, or have got to work to challenge those things that cause these young people to be at the point at where they are or dropping out of school. What kind of resources are we providing for them? Having this, and I, from a classroom teacher perspective, I know what that's like because I've seen those students and then tried many times. It wasn't because they wanted to. Now, I had one or two that just didn't like school, but he did not have or feel that there were any programs or activities at the school that addressed his concerns. And so he became one of those students that it was easier for him to go smoke and skip school. Now, for me, that bothered me, but the resources were not available. And his parents said if that's what he wants to do, so he does that. But I also think that many times when we're bringing bills like this, I'd like for us to think about making sure, did that child, when he or she went to that school system, have a teacher that stood before him and believed that he or she could learn? Did that child and his classroom teacher have all of the materials, equipment that he or she needed in order to make that a class that would cause this child to stay in school? So it's those kinds of things, and I think we're on the back end of the problem. And I would ask that we would consider looking at what are some of the other things that we need to do to make sure that that child is a successful person within our system. Thank you.
Ma'am, I agree.
Chair thanks the lady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marshall, Representative Covin. Will be the fourth person to speak on the BR.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, thank you for bringing this bill. Give me a quick recap of what you're doing right now on this bill.
Currently, when a student drops out of high school, they go through an exit interview, and then that's the end of the line. There's no other communication. This will require the State Department to let the adult ed programs through the community college system know this student exists. They can then market to them and try to bring them back into a GED program or skills training or a high school diploma option. And currently, you have to wait till you're 19 to participate in that. This will let you participate at age 18.
Perfect. I think it's a great idea, and I look forward to voting for it.
Thank you, sir.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Question for the body now is adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 102 ayes, 0 nays. The BR has been adopted.
Mr. Speaker, there's a committee sub.
Okay. Representative Smith, you want to talk on the sub or the bill?
We'll
You got an amendment? Okay. Let's pass the sub first, okay? You care to explain this committee sub for us, please?
Yes, sir. On line 51 of the sub, we changed the age from 17 to 18. That was a request of the State Department of Education, and we, or in conversation with the community college system, felt like that was a reasonable number, and so it was agreed on. That's
Okay, you've
all.
heard the explanation of the sub. Question for the body's adoption. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. Committee sub has been adopted. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Chilton, Reverend Smith.
Thank you. Schools have difficult time with populations that they have to justify, and one of those justifications is on dropouts. So we're offering an amendment.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill number 266 by Representative Smith.
Here to explain your amendment.
Yes, what this will do is on line 83 of page 3, it will put in an opportunity for that student to enroll in this program that Representative Woods is presenting to us, a non-traditional school, and then that individual will not be counted as a dropout.
Okay, do you see it as a friendly amendment?
Yes, sir. This has been reviewed and agreed upon. Yes, sir.
Okay, sponsor sees it as friendly amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote.
Thank you.
Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. Amendment has been adopted. Representative Wood.
Move final passage as amended.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Montgomery, Representative Hassel.
Hey, I work with high school students all the time, man, and I just want to say this for the record. This is a great bill. I appreciate you bringing it. This will help a lot of students out or kids out that's in high school. I just want to make sure I let you know that for the record.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate it.
Question for the body now is final passage of HB 266 as amended. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. HB 266 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank
the
you,
body.
gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill.
On page 9 of the calendar, House Bill number 262 by Representative Ellis relating to the Department of Insurance.
Reverend Ellis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Members, HB 262 is a technical revision bill where Alabama Pre-Need Funeral and Cemetery Act of 2023 had a reference, a code section reference that was in error. We passed this bill 102 to nothing last year, and it didn't quite make it across the finish line in the Senate. So there's no questions. I call for BIR.
Question for the body's adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 102 ayes, 0 nays. BIR has been adopted. Mr. Chairman.
If there's no further questions, I call for final passage.
That is questions. Final passage of HB 262. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the vote. 103 ayes, 0 nays. HB 262 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you,
Member.
gentlemen. Clerk, call next bill. Mr. Clerk, let's go back to HB 57. While he's looking that up, we'd like to recognize the city councilman from Summerton, guest of Representative Wadsworth. Let's give him a big hand today. Councilman Harrison, thank you for being with us. Mr. Clerk, I'm ready.
On page 20 of the calendar, House Bill number 57 by Representative Halsey relating to city boards of education.
Representative Halsey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what HB 57 does is it restores the power of annexation to city councils and county commissions where the power of annexation legally lies and historically has been the case. It prohibits the City Board of Education from purchasing or acquiring land without the municipality obtaining an agreement in writing from the appropriate governing body of the municipality or county where the land is located and is served by the Board of Education annexing the property. Therefore, this just prevents non-elected city boards from annexing property by default. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move the BIR.
That is questions. Adoption of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine. Record the votes. 92 ayes, 4 nays, 3 abstentions. The BIR has been adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for final passage of HB 57.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Marengo, Representative McCampbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition. Will the gentle lady yield?
Absolutely.
I'm trying to find the rationale for this bill. Can you tell me um, what's the current way of doing it, and then how will this bill change it?
So technically, the reason that I brought this bill is because this involved a case that did go to the Supreme Court, the Alabama Supreme Court, and they recommended that we clarify this law. So that's what we're doing, is clarifying that, because there was some confusion as to the application of it. And so essentially, all we're stating is that a Board of Education in let's just say Helena, where I live, could not go and purchase land anywhere in the city of Helena to develop it for their school system. Right now, you could do that. So you, anybody, we could go by our school Board of Education, our city one, could go purchase land in Baldwin County and be in Shelby County. And that's legal based on this. So what we're trying to say is that if you want to do that, all you need to do is have an agreement with that municipality in Baldwin County to have them de-annex the land, and then you annex the land.
Okay, maybe that's not a good example, but
But that is the reality of what could happen.
Okay, well, let's get it a little closer. So what you're saying, Pike Road, then, for instance, here in Montgomery,
Yes, sir.
their Board of Education would not be able to go and purchase land in the city of Montgomery without what?
Without annexing it, having either a written agreement with that municipality or county to de-annex and then annex.
Okay.
So essentially, if you have a neighboring municipality who has their own city school system, they can cross over lines and buy land in someone else's municipality.
Right.
Those tax dollars for that land should be being utilized for that municipality. If the school board comes in and annexes this land, it shuts down all of their sovereignty over that land. They no longer, because they're a part of the State Board of Education, they're not paying the taxes, but yet they receive the services from that municipality based on that city's population and the taxes collected there. So I'll use another example. This is not the case, but because I'm going to use two cities. So if my city in Helena wanted to go and buy land in the city limits of Hoover and put a parking lot there, they can do that right now.
Okay.
But that land is in Hoover's city limits. And they are, by law, the legal zoning authority over that land. Once that school board comes in and buys land right there, they've lost the use of their zoning, because now it's state board, and there's no authority for the municipality over that. So you no longer collect property taxes on that, and you still have to provide services. So if you're not if let's just say it was a residential piece of property that was earning that municipality taxes before that purchase, they now lose that revenue for their city with land that is in their city, not the other cities. And they're also providing police and fire protection at their citizens' tax dollars for some other municipalities' school board.
Okay, but you are saying then, if the school board goes through the process of trying to annex that property into the school board district, then, or into the school board county or city or
Sure.
whatever it may be, then if they are successful in that process, then they could indeed.
Yeah, all we're asking is just mutual cooperation, which typically should exist anyway, as long as neighboring counties and cities are working well together. But in the case that they're not, it's basically saying that your city can't come in and take land from another city that's paying taxes to that city and providing services for that. All you need to do is have them de-annex it, and then you annex it. That's typically what should happen. But unfortunately, there are a few cases where that is not happening, and it is costing municipalities revenue. And it's an ongoing expense to them because they're having to provide police and fire protection. They also have to service the roads that lead to that. So it's leaving all of the liability on the city that no longer makes a dime off of that land.
Okay, I appreciate it then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here, thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Escambia, Representative Baker.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Speaker. Representative Halsey, you might have answered this. I was in conversation, so forgive me if I might be asked. This is in relation, I know that you had mentioned your bill city to city. That is, I mean, I understand that. I guess the question I would pose, this would be such as like a city school system, and that they are trying to be forward-thinking, planning for their future, say for 10, 15, 20 years out. And so they're wanting to purchase some land outside the incorporated area of the city limits. So in the unincorporated areas of the county and all, which will be serviced by the county school system. But they're trying to plan for their future with potential property that would be annexed in time, but still working towards making that purchase. So can you tell
if
me?
it's already in the county, that wouldn't even be an issue.
If it's what?
If they're already in that county, it would not be an issue.
Okay.
That they'd be able to do that anyway because they serve students in that county.
Okay. So being able to purchase that, this would not in any way then impede their ability to be able to purchase that property outside the corporate limits of the city, even though the students that currently may be on that footprint, I mean.
Maybe what?
I guess the students, I mean, I'm saying anything that's, the county would be servicing, educating those students then in the unincorporated areas.
Correct.
Correct, right, so. But,
More than anything, this is not really a Board of Education issue, it's a zoning issue.
Right, right.
Okay? So all we're trying to do is maintain that legal authority lies with cities and counties for annexation.
Right.
And all we're asking is that they just follow those rules and
Right.
either annex and de-annex that land prior to or during their purchase. They can actually just have the agreement and then move forward.
Okay, thank you. Well, that,
Yes,
I
sir.
was just concerned for those city systems that might be trying to be proactive, planning for their future 10, 20 years out, and wanting to maybe try to purchase some properties with the expectation they would be at some point in time annexing those properties in that currently are not.
Yes, that would be allowable. You still would, the catch here is, if it's unincorporated land, that's great. But if it already is situated in a different municipality, that would be problematic.
And I understand municipality. I was
Correct.
just making sure for the.
Yes.
Okay. Very
Yes.
good. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Sellers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the recognition with the gentle lady yield.
Yes, sir.
Trying to get some clarity on this piece, because it seems as if this bill will prohibit or at least put roadblocks for a school system that may want to, as Representative Baker says, for the growth of their system, they may want to find some property where they want to grow and add a cell phone tower to it. Or, and so I'm trying to
So
digest.
let me ask you this. Would you be comfortable if the city of Helena wanted to take land just through purchase, okay? I want to go buy land in Bessemer, and I'm going to put a parking lot for a school on it. Would you be okay with that?
If the school system is free market, so you're going to tell the school system they cannot buy land in another municipality?
No, I'm not telling them
they're
they
paying
can't buy
for
it.
not giving.
I'm
but
not telling
paying
them they
for it.
can't buy it. I'm just saying you need to de-annex and annex. If we're not going to follow annexation laws in the state, why bother having them? This is only about annexation, and it's just asking that you go through proper procedure to de-annex and annex, rather than Helena coming into Bessemer and buying up 400 acres of land to build a high school there, when that's your city's land, and they should be able to develop it for the benefit and use of their citizens.
Okay, I get that. I get that. I understand that. I understand that. But I'm just trying to grasp the whole piece of, does annexation or de-annexation come before purchase or after purchase?
It's written where you can do it both. You can have a written agreement that you're going to execute that, or you can wait until it has actually occurred. So there's allowance there for you to go ahead. If you've got an agreement, a written agreement, then you can go ahead and purchase the land.
So-
Or you can go ahead and de-annex and annex and then purchase the land.
So I'm just wondering what municipality or what school system desires to buy land in another municipality or another school zone?
So it has
In this
specifically happened in Shelby County. There is another school system, which I can't tell you what school system it is, but I just know that a senator said that they were having to deal with the same issue right now that they're trying to fight. So it is happening. I can't tell you everywhere it's happening, but I do know for a fact that it is happening. I mean, it went to the Supreme Court, and they ruled and said, y'all need to clarify this law. It's very confusing. So we're just that's all we're doing is taking what has historically been the law, still is the law, and that is that the municipalities and the counties have zoning authority, not school boards, and restoring that power appropriately so, and then allowing them a path forward either through written agreement or through an actual act of de-annexation and annexation.
Somewhere, maybe I'm confused about the lines. Maybe I'm just it's a little gray about the lines.
Lines are very clearly drawn. They're drawn by
Because-
municipal annexation or county annexation. Those are clear.
So it only applies only if you're trying to a school board is trying to purchase land in another municipality or another school district area, so it only applies there, not if they're purchasing land. So just
In their
take
own
Helena.
county, their own city, they can do what they want.
So they can do what they want in their own city. So only if they're going outside of
Their boundary lines.
their boundary lines.
Yes, sir.
That you want to block them.
I don't want to block them. I want to honor the law that has been historically on the books forever and ever and ever.
So
So I just want to uphold and restore that power where it belongs.
Okay, all right. So hopefully it doesn't prohibit, school systems from purchasing land to put cell phone towers on.
No, I hope it does not, sir.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, didn't we have a situation like this to come up last year where a school board, I think somebody wanted to purchase their property to build a school the school was taking over somebody else's property and they didn't de-annex it, but I think the school board was going to sell the property. It seemed like it was on the news or wherever it was in Alabama. And people were somewhat upset because that meant another jurisdiction could build a school in your city because your school board sold the property to them. So you want to prevent that.
So basically, what's the city you serve?
Birmingham.
Okay. So in Helena, right now, if our school system wants to come buy land inside the corporate city limits of Birmingham and build a school there, we can do that. I'm trying to prevent that because that's Birmingham's land, and they should be over its
I think that's
use.
the situation that happened last year, and I don't remember where it happened, but that has happened in Birmingham in my district, where Terrence sold some land that was Birmingham's land,
correct,
and they created a landfill. And I don't know how it got by the city of Birmingham, but it just so happened to be part of my district, and that's why I know it happened, that they sold some land. But I just thought I knew it was in the news or something where the similar situation, where in that case the school board had the ability to sell the property to another jurisdiction to use it to build a school on, yet it's still because it had not been de-annexed from that municipality. So I can understand what you're saying. That municipality was still responsible for anything associated like fire or police protection because they sold it to another municipality, but it still was in the city limits of the board that sold the property. So you're trying to prevent that from happening with this bill.
Yeah.
I recognize the gentleman from Hale, Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, with a year later year.
Yes, sir.
In the questions I was trying to regards to, you talk about city property, city buying. What if the property is adjoining the city limits, but it's in the county, and system is expanding and for the needs of trying to meet the area about them being able to buy that property in the county? You can't hear me?
Ask again, please.
What's there?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I cannot hear your question.
Okay. The question I have is in regards to if the property is adjoining the city limits, contingency, okay, and the city school system wants to purchase it, you know, it's kind of like if we're trying to do a deal and we're trying to purchase the property right next to it without, you know, the public knowing that we're purchasing for another school, where, you know, in the city where I assume annex it into the city limits after, but it's just adjoining open property that's not residential, but next to the county. How does that here work?
If it's not inside a municipality already and it's in an unincorporated area of that county, this does not have any bearing on that. It's only if you are going into someone's corporate city limits, like their annexed city limits, if you are going into that and you are not that municipality, you're not that state, like that city's school system, then we're just saying that you need to annex the land or have a written agreement with the city to annex the land.
Okay.
And then you can still proceed with your purchase and develop it as you please.
Okay, but again, like I said, it does not affect any annex into county annexation.
If it's unincorporated, it doesn't touch anything.
Okay, good deal.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Here recognize the gentleman from Talladega, Representative Robbins.
Hey, Representative Halsey, how are you?
Hello, Representative Robbins. Great. You?
I'm excellent. So I was reading over your bill, and a couple things came to my attention I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
And see if maybe you would be okay with an amendment here on the floor or one moving forward, like when it goes up to the Senate. Because I just thought of like a problem. I know we talked about this over the phone, like this bill, but one thing that came to my attention was this idea that, so if you read line 51 through 52, it says a Board of Education may not purchase or acquire any interest. So acquire could mean I'm Sally Smith. I taught for Sylacauga City Schools my entire life. I had no children. I leave this property to the Sylacauga City Schools. Well, that property was acquired not by purchase. And so then when you read on line 59, it talks about our other acquisition, which could be through will. But then in 2A, it talks only about purchase. So it's got steps in place for when you purchase, but then it's also talking about other acquisitions. And so I think that really what you're trying to get to the heart at is when property's for sale, someone buys it. Because kind of what I'm seeing is if you do it by any other means, like if that example I use, I'm Sally Smith, I own 60 acres, I donate it to the church to the school in my will, that then all of a sudden that 60 acres, which could be anywhere in the state, has to be annexed into that municipality. So that's why I wondered if you would be okay with an amendment now, or we could talk about it later on, like saying only for purchase. to limiting it to solely if a property is purchased by a Board of Education.
So what I'll say is I am not agreeable to amendment on the floor today. However, I'm happy to talk after this, but I will still argue that that sovereign authority remains with a municipality and a county. The minute we start like doing these little odds and ends for this group and this group and this group, what we're doing is deteriorating the authority in annexation law. And I think that needs to be respected. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying it's not something to talk about off the floor, but right now I'm not comfortable with that. I'm willing to talk afterwards.
Yeah, I tried to grab you earlier when I read the bill, but I didn't see you. So I said, Marcus told me to come down and do this right now.
Thanks, Marcus.
So, because I wasn't going to, but Marcus said you have to.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate
that
it.
was my concern. I agree with the annexation, but part of when you start over-annexing, that puts more strain on a municipality, that if all of a sudden you're annexing 20 miles outside of your city limits, you've got to annex that in. And really what we're focused on is just that purchase. So the act of purchasing, and it's that purchasing of real property. So if we can talk afterwards, I really do think that, I think that's what you're trying to do, and I'm worried that it's going to come a little broad and difficult for municipalities to deal with. So we can talk afterwards.
Thank you, sir.
Question for the body now is passage of HB 57. Clerk will unlock machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock machine, record the vote. 76 ayes, 8 noes. HB 57 has passed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, lady.
Body.
Ms. Clerk, let's call up HB 287.
On page 20 of the calendar, House Bill number 287 with substitute by Representative Gavan relating to municipal police departments.
Thanks for the recognition and recall, Mr. Speaker. Members, you have before you HB 287. And I also have an amendment, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to have an amendment as well as a floor amendment and a friendly amendment. Before you, members, is HB 287 that will require a municipality to report on an annual basis to report on an annual basis the number of sworn law enforcement A-post certified officers to the to the Alabama State Law Enforcement Agency and Attorney General. This piece of legislation, if enacted, would mandate this requirement. It shall be a shall and not a must. There are also penalties that will be imposed against any municipality who fails to submit this information in a timely manner. This bill, if enacted, will require the first reporting to take place no later than 60 days after it has been, after the signing by the governor's office. I also have a sub to this bill, and at the appropriate time, I would move the sub, Mr. Speaker. Move for the BRR.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Etowah, Representative Gidley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlelady Gill.
I do. I don't.
Just a question for clarification. I read over this and I saw the requirement for each municipality to turn in the number of officers they have. What motivated this? What is the purpose for this?
I'm so glad that you asked.
Okay.
You know, I came in a little late, and I was going to give you a handout that would have addressed the issue. This bill was in committee last week, and I was asked to carry this bill. But what we have are experiencing, and I want to say I've worked on this bill with Aaliyah as well as other members in law enforcement regarding a duty to report. We're facing a crisis across the state, and there are several municipalities in particular who are failing to report the number of sworn law enforcement officers, not only the number of sworn officers, but also the crime stats for each year of any crimes that take place within those municipalities. There is already a law, and we're going to make sure that we fine-tune that law, that there is a duty to report the information with regards to the crime stats. But what we're seeing now is that and especially because there's a request that we are trying to do whatever we can do to assist those municipalities where the crime is at an all-time high. But in doing so, in order to make that determination on what further assistance that we can offer, we need to know where these municipalities stand with regards to the number of sworn officers. Also, they should be reporting the numbers anyway. You have certain cities where the numbers have dwindled down to almost sub-zero. There's a lot of false reporting of how many sworn officers are in certain municipalities. We cannot continue to put the lives of our law enforcement officers in jeopardy because someone fails to tell the truth regarding the number of sworn officers. Yesterday, just so happened, there was a report, a very good report that went out by ABC 3340 that spoke to officers in the city of Birmingham, making a plea and basically stating that they are at a point of no return because they can no longer do their jobs because they are mentally, physically exhausted and the level of fatigue because there's not enough sworn officers and the number of officers that is being reported is not true.
Okay.
And so I want to read, and I'm glad if you would indulge me on one thing, because I want to read a quote from that article, and I thought it was a very good, interesting read. But I want to read what the officer said, not what I said. This came from law enforcement, and there were more than one officer at the time. Read between the lines. It is definitely not safe in Birmingham, said an officer who requested anonymity. Officers report that on some nights, only a handful of officers cover an entire precinct. If you only have 5 people to work at night, on that side of town where there is where your closest backup is coming from, it may take 10 to 15 minutes to get to you. The officer said, I've been in situations by myself where I have to fight whole families. The officer further cites other things such as the morale, financial needs, and the mental health and concerns. This is the thing. We are at a point of no return where officers are looking for help, said another officer speaking to a group of pastors. At the end of the day, we need to know the truth. The public needs to know the truth.
Okay.
Because what this officer is saying is because of the lie that is being told, for whatever reason, just like with all these made-up press conferences that just come about all of a sudden, to bolster your whatever, and folks go and stand up there and as if they are groupies instead of rock stars, and they're helping to promote this stuff. I'm sorry.
My time is running down, so let me get it right. What you're saying here is the purpose behind this is to make sure that officers are not being put in a situation to where they are not able or it's not safe for them to carry out their duties in that certain setting. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gitley.
Chair thanks. The general question for the body now is passage of the BIR. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the vote. 92 ayes, 0 nays, 4 abstention.
Yeah.
The BR has been
Oh,
adopted.
yeah, yeah. We just engrossed it in one of them. Yeah, but I thought, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker.
I'm seeing this committee sub.
Yes, it would further, again, it still, allows for the, for truth and transparency in the reporting, of the number of sworn officers. Also, it also adds the language with regards to, the mandate to submit or report crime statistics as well within that year.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the sub. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson, Resident Treadway. Speaking on the sub.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Ms. Moore, you want to speak on the sub or the bill?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Sub?
Yes.
Okay. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Resident Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A representative in the sub, does the sub have any provision as to who would be doing the reporting?
It's coming in the amendment I have.
It's going to be an amendment
Yes, ma'am.
that's going to tell us.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair recognizes the lady from Madison speaking on the sub. While she's making her way down here, we'd like to recognize Tracy Moore from Tuskegee, the guest of Representative Warren. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the lady yield.
Oh,
Will you tell me if your number is 11 TMDLZ1? Is that on the sub? The number at the top here.
yes.
Okay. And so the only thing that changed what I see in the sub is on page 3.
We made sure we added the clarity on page 2, and that would be
Hold up. Page 2, what line? No, see, it's not. You must have a draft because I don't have that. No, All right, so I need, what am I reading?
it should be, we added the 30-day, there's a mandatory reporting every year. But we also, because of the urgency of now, added a requirement that 30-day, that if after the 30-day period, the agency remains non-compliant, the commission shall impose the fine. So you should have that. And that is going to be in the amendment also.
I will tell you what I have as the sub is, it's a substitute offered by and it was offered by Representative Crawford, okay? But it does not, the only changes that I see that was made in the sub is state and county agency. It's on line 66. Is that what you're referring to? Any state, county, or municipal agency that fails to timely submit. That's it right there. No, don't need to. But what they've done is put this all together. This is it. All right. So but it seems like the only question I have in any grant program, is this based on, but that's already in here. It
No,
says any state, county, or municipal agencies that fails to timely submit a report required under this article shall lose the ability to participate in any grant program
Yes.
administered by Alabama Department
And
of
that's why
Economic.
it's going to be an amendment to that section.
Okay, so so I have.
ADECA has sent over an amendment. I think, Mr. Speaker, if we can get past the sub and get to the amendments, we will answer the questions.
I have that.
I'm sorry. We're on the sub.
Yes. But the question ties into the amendments that Representative Ingram has.
Thank you.
Okay. Question for the body now is passage of the sub. You heard the explanation. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote.
I think so.
Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 90 ayes, 1 nay, 4 abstentions. HB 27, the substitute has been adopted. Representative Van.
We have, Mr. Speaker, I have some amendments,
Okay.
floor amendments that, and I think
Correct. Let's see. Are they your amendments or
I have a floor amendment, and I think Representative Ingram has an amendment from a.
okay, I've got a, let me recognize a gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Treadway.
Already in it? Okay. We're good then.
Representative Gavan. So let me tell you why I think this bill is important. About a year ago, the Speaker placed a number of us on committees, on a committee dealing with violent crime in the state. At that point, I worked with the Speaker's office in trying to get information from a number of cities, especially the city of Montgomery and the city of Birmingham, which is accounting for nearly half of all violent crime in the state of Alabama. I got nowhere with that. I sent a letter. I had a letter hand-delivered. I sent emails. And for some reason, after spending 31 years in that city, and always being transparent about law enforcement officers on the street, this seems to be a big secret now. And as you know, when homicides in the city of Birmingham in this last decade were at 53, we've now reached 153. When we're at 53, we had 2 times the number of officers we currently have, over 2 times the current number of officers. I also tried to get this number from the city of Montgomery by letter, by hand-delivered, by email. Haven't gotten it. We cannot work with the committee that the Speaker put together without having this information and bringing resources to these departments. So it's unfortunate we have to be here where we're at, but these are public taxpayer-funded jobs, and there is no reason for this to be secretive, and there should be total transparency, and for that, that's the reason I'm supporting the bill.
And I wanted to say, I appreciate that, Representative Treadway. Listen, and the Speaker was spot on a few days ago. You know, we're down here basically begging for help. And I want to say this to the members, because I know I have some colleagues that they are closely associated with this person, that person. What we're doing is not about that. We're doing this because we have inside information on a lot of these things that are going on, and we're doing our best to tell the truth about a realization that we could lose more officers the way we lost Watasha Carter in short order because of what these officers are going through on the streets. There's just not enough sworn law enforcement officers. And then it is also malfeasance on our part if we continue to allow something to be perpetrated that's just not true.
Well, you're right, but when you have a committee put together by the Speaker of the House of the state of Alabama wanting to bring resources and help to your community, but you won't even give the basic information back to his office to try to address these issues. And you got to bring legislation.
And it's
mandating.
not fair. And listen, I want to say this. I don't want it to be misrepresented. No one's trying to bring shame on anyone. As you stated a minute ago, and I, honest to God, for 8 years, I've tried to encourage, I've tried to uplift, I have called, I've talked about these numbers of sworn officers, so much so to even go as far as to say if we continue to lose officers, we will be at a point of no return. I know I have driven you crazy because you and I have talked about this so much, and it was to help. It was not to hurt. So if I have to stand here and be said, they not like us, no, I'm not like y'all. And I don't want to be, because I want to help save lives. And I do have a very special amendment, Mr. Speaker, while Trudaway is standing here, and I hope that he will agree with it. I had not talked with him about this, and at the appropriate time, I would like to offer this amendment, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank you for your effort.
Okay. So,
You don't have to stand here. Yes,
this Treadway's amendment or yours?
mine, but I didn't. Okay, we're good. It's mine. Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment.
Clerk, see the amendment.
You already have? Going on with this? That's good. Hey, okay, I'm glad you. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad. Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'm ready. I have an amendment, replace line 58 through 62 on page 3 with the following. The Alabama Justice Information Commission shall adopt rules for the submission, and this comes from, at the request of ALEA, submission of any report or information to ALEA as required in state or federal law. Once a rule is adopted, any agency subject to this article that neglects or refuses to submit a report or the information or perform any other act in compliance with the commission's rules shall be subject to an administrative fine of $1,000 as provided in this subsection. And then upon a finding of non-compliance by the commission, ALEA shall provide notice to the agencies if the to their chief executive officer. Then they add the time period that if the 30-day period lapses and remains in compliance, the commission shall impose the fine with the notice of the agencies to the chief executive officer within that 30-day time period. The commission shall assess the additional fines. And of course, this basically is adding the definition of the structure of the fines that will be imposed, and then who is responsible for that information.
Okay, you've heard the explanation, amendment from ALEA, I believe is where we're at on that one, and heard the explanation of it. I got a couple, you want to talk on the amendment or the bill? The bill? Amendment or the bill? Okay. We can go ahead and pass this amendment then. Clerk, unlock the machine and members vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 90 ayes, 1 nay, 10 abstentions. The amendment has been adopted.
Oh, I have one more amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Clerk, see the amendment.
Amendment to House Bill number 287 by Representative Gavan.
Here to explain your amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have one more amendment I did speak with Representative Treadaway. You know, I'm not one to name a bill after anybody, but I mentioned, and I've mentioned on this House floor several times through the years, Sergeant Watasha Carter. We honored him when he was killed in 2019. We have a Memorial Highway in Jefferson County. But what a lot of members don't know is that he was killed in the line of duty after advising those in leadership that the operation they were trying to do that night, there was not enough law enforcement there. They didn't have enough. But he was directed to go on anyway to perform that duty, and at that time, he was killed. So I spoke with Treadaway about it a moment ago, and this would be simply to name this bill the Sergeant Watasha Carter Truth and Transparency Act, Mr. Speaker. And it would amend section 2 of the code to add that language, as well as replace line 55 on page 2 to add it, and also on line 71, and that this act shall become effective on June 1.
Okay, you heard the explanation of naming of the bill. Ms. Moore, you want to speak on the bill or the amendment? On the amendment, okay. Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson, Representative Moore, speaking on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, it's a great gesture you're doing, but have you talked to the family?
Yes, I talked to the family. Listen, and unfortunately, I have to say I talked with his bride, and she's nobody from the city.
Okay, because I'm family too.
Well, that's
Okay, now the
wife.
question of the body is passage of the amendment. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 70 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment has been adopted.
With that, Mr. Speaker, I move for final passage.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Montgomery, Representative Hassel.
Well, with Lady Yield.
Oh, yes.
All right. Only thing I got a concern about is sort of like, let's say we was in the military, and I got 1,000 soldiers. This person got 3,000 soldiers. Why would I give that soldier, the enemy, the number of people that I have, giving the public the account of a lack of police officers? If you're making it public, I got a real concern with that. And the second thing is, they already report to what agency? It's a Jesus agency they already report to already. But it's not for public use. Because we cannot give the public,
The criminal.
if we don't have enough officers, why would we let the public know we don't have enough officers?
We did extensive work on this.
But
Listen, the criminal already knows how many officers that are operating. They case out the headquarters. They already know if you don't have it. And this is the general public. The general public deserves a right to know that they do not have enough sworn officers in their communities to police. That is one of the reasons why you're seeing so much killing taking place. We have done extensive research. The criminals already.
So if we report the numbers publicly, how would that help deal with the
We're
crime?
reporting the information to ALEA. They're supposed to be reporting crime and stats. Let me finish. The crime stats to ALEA already. This information should go into the NCIC. You have
They give it to a Jesus, right? Don't they give the number to a Jesus?
Some folks are not. They're not reporting.
They have to report it to a Jesus.
If they are not doing it through the process to submit the information, and they, for instance, you have some municipalities there's a long list of municipalities now that are not reporting.
So I heard up here, I don't know who said it, about giving a letter. They asked for a letter for the account for the numbers of police officers that we have in Montgomery, which I even talked to our city officials. They didn't get a letter, period, about getting an account. I mean, I just know this for the city of Montgomery. But in the city of Montgomery, they did not get a letter to give an account of police officers that they do have. But they do report it, but it's reported this is a strategy. It's a strategy piece too for the police officers, not to report that they have lack of police officers. You should not do this. It just don't make sense. I would never report to the enemy about I got lack of police officers. I would never let the public know this.
Be able to report the information to the state, the number of sworn. You're reporting this information to the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency here for the state of Alabama. So are you telling me that Aaliyah should not get the number of sworn law enforcement officers at a municipality?
With a Jesus,
Are
they
you
can get that
telling
number.
me
They have to report that number.
they're not reporting?
Okay, the ones that's not
Sometimes
reporting
I
it,
have said
but the ones that not reporting it, they have to report this. By rule, they got to report it. They ask for this all the time. Listen, I understand what you're doing, but my problem is if we put it publicly about this,
telling me that people, the general public, because I made this argument a few years ago, until one day I stood outside of a building. I was talking to someone. I stood there about 2 or 3 hours in between two public housing communities, Smithfield and Illiton. Smithfield is here, Illiton is here. We were talking about the issues of the day, and then I looked, and then that person that I was speaking with, after 3 hours between two public housing communities, I simply said, I have noticed there's not one sworn law enforcement officer that has come through here between two communities. So I've been pushing this issue for a number of years. But before I did, I was asked by some folks, and people started calling. So I did my homework, and they said, Ms. Gavan, you need to call and sit down with some OGs. And I referenced this last week. And they will tell you about the construct of this process, what's going on. I said, I said yes, because I know that argument could be made on different ends. But even with that, after I met with several, sat down with them, and I talked about that argument. And what each one of them to a science said is, we already know. And you know what they said? They said, we know because we study. We go and we case the police headquarters, the police departments. They count the cars. The criminal, whatever they want to do to commit a crime, they're going to be so knowledgeable about what they're doing. This is not going to, if whatever you're saying, it's not going to stop them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read from you from an expert.
Hold on for a second.
Somebody in law enforcement that was
hold on
an
one
expert.
second.
Go
Before you read that, answer this question. Even if this bill passed and we report numbers, tell me how that helped.
Know how to, you got municipalities asking for help. We don't know.
So let me tell you, in the city of Montgomery, we already know that we got a lack of police officers. It was a problem. Now, we know that as our delegation, Montgomery delegation, but we are trying to find ways to do that. But reporting a number and making it public, what I'm afraid of, when I came up here, only thing that I'm afraid of, I'm just afraid of if we make this number public, because you talking about a high.
You're saying that the commission shouldn't get the number. Because they're not
number's already being reported to a Jesus.
It's not. If it was already being reported and reported accurately, it's not.
So
they're not reporting the true numbers. And let me tell you why I say this. I don't know.
What's the motive behind? What's the motive?
Ask them. I don't know why they're not, but they're not.
And that's what I don't get. I don't understand how do it help the city if you're going to report false numbers.
I don't know why. You would have to ask them.
Because all I know is this: all police chiefs, they want the city to be safe. Every elected official wants the city to be safe.
All police chiefs aren't in charge of their own police department either.
But they should be running their police department. Their police chief, they the police, they should run their police department.
I'm glad you said that.
But the only thing
that's not the case.
my only concern, like I said, Representative, is that if we start reporting these numbers publicly, that it's just never, I would never report it publicly that I have very few police officers and let criminals know this. Not in the public sense. It's already been reported to a Jesus. They should have the numbers. Well, I know in the city of Montgomery we report it. In the city, I'm in Montgomery. In the city of Montgomery, those numbers are being reported. They have to report that number. You know, and that's. But that's the only thing that I'm concerned about with this particular legislation is that if we report these numbers publicly, that I have a big concern dealing with criminals in the area. Say, hey, we know for a fact they don't have enough police officers because this is what this said. You know, I don't know about criminals counting police cars. I don't know about criminals, you know, they case. I'm not saying they're not. I mean, you know, they think of all kind of ways to do crime. But I know if we officially report a number out and we report this and say, hey, the city of Montgomery got a lack of 400 police officers, you know, that's just a precedent that I don't think we need to go into. Thank you.
You recognize the gentleman from Jefferson, Representative Sellers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With a gentle lady yield. Listen, I live in Pleasant Grove, Alabama, the sixth safest city in the state of Alabama. And I guarantee you, the municipalities that each of you represent, you know exactly what your departments look like. There should be transparency among all departments. And one of the main reasons, as people argue about what does those numbers do or what does those numbers don't do, the lack of presence shows you that the numbers are down. If you don't see a police officer, if you don't see a patrol car, if you do exhibition driving on public streets and no one comes, listen, it shows the lack of the amount of police officers that municipalities have, especially when you're in urbanized cities. And as Representative Treadaway stated before, 53% of the violent crime that happened in the state of Alabama happened between Montgomery and Birmingham. And it's a fact. And if we as in this body, how can we help municipalities if we don't know what they need or the number of sworn police officers that they do have? And so thank you for this bill. And we encourage every municipality to be transparent about what those are so that the state can help in this process as we help to eliminate more crime.
Sure, thanks, gentlemen. Sure, recognize the lady from Madison, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the lady yield. I attended the press conference when the governor did her introduction of the crime bills. There was a statement made, and it concerned me because the statement, and it falls in line with the comments that were just made by Representative Sellers. It appeared to me that these bills were designated just for Montgomery and Birmingham.
I don't know.
Well, hold on, just a minute. I'm saying it appeared to me, based on what was said, and the conversations I've heard in here, it says, if you're saying we are doing this because 53% of the crimes are between Birmingham and Montgomery, and it's due to all of the criminal activities that are taking place in inner city. That is alarming. But I do think that if we're going to talk about crime, yes, if it's bad in certain areas of town, certainly talk about it. But let's have a collective approach to these criminal acts across the state. And it should not.
Well, I think the bills that it's my understanding that the crime package that is circulating and that's being rolled out is it's specific to all cities and municipalities. Now, I can't. Let me say this: I can't speak to what Montgomery is doing. I do know Montgomery and Mobile, Montgomery, and Birmingham have the highest crime rates in the state of Alabama. So I've not stood up to talk about Montgomery crime and all of that. I'm only going to speak on those things that I know firsthand. And I also
and I would say if you stop that, but I'm saying that's how the message came across, that it was about the crimes in the city. I'm talking about, now I was sitting at the press conference when the governor had the press conference. That's what came across to me, and it caused me to say, oh, really, if we're doing the crime bills, that we're looking at the entire state and not specific. Now, yes, as those problems increase or gets worse, we would. But that was a concern that I had, and it certainly did not sit well. But anyway, let me go to this bill. And from your perspective, this bill is not about Birmingham. It's not about Montgomery. It's about the state.
It's about as far as I'm concerned, it's about the transparency of law enforcement. Those who have a duty to report. As I stated, I've been pushing this issue for some time.
You what?
I've been pushing this issue for some time, and I said it on last week. It just didn't come about today, and it's not by happenstance. But I do know when we have major cities, and I don't care if it's a major city, if it's a city with 200 people, we need to make sure that there is a level of transparency with the amount of numbers. And the young man who came before Sellers, the expert mentioned in a report, and this is a criminologist who spoke to the fact about that there should be that all individuals municipalities should report those numbers.
They should.
This came from an expert.
And they should.
And I cannot, and I should, and I feel really bad because I wish the gentleman I had walked up to him, spoke to him. He mentioned not one thing about this, but there are a lot of issues out there that are going on in these cities. And unfortunately, we do look in our state to those that fall under that major city umbrella. But we have crime in the rate. You remember I tackled this situation in Brookside with all of that corruption. And we passed legislation that would have an impact on every municipality.
I just said my comments was based on the information that was as the governor was giving her speech for the press conference, and then listening to the discussion here, that it was partial to two major groups. It doesn't say that. And it's based on that. And if that is the way we are approaching crime in Alabama, I'm sorry. I think the approach should be statewide, not just because of two cities within the state of Alabama.
And in all honesty, I get what you're saying, because it does seem like those municipalities are coming up more and more and more and more and more. I don't know what is driving that, but at the end of the day, the realization is we are here where we are. They are some of the foremost populated cities in the state of Alabama.
But we also,
but the bills once passed will be in effect, or once enacted, to cover all municipalities.
It should, and that's the approach that I felt should have been made when you start talking about the crime.
Or should have been said. And I think each time that I've spoken, I have touched on the fact that these bills will impact all municipalities, and it's for crime throughout the state. And I believe the speaker has said that on several occasions also.
All I'm saying is the person that was leading, I mentioned the comments that were made by the governor.
I didn't attend that press conference.
I have a question. On page 2 of your amendment,
which I had
line
one
40.
Okay.
Line 40. Now this is talking about the required reports of information that's being described, how will it be determined that an individual or an agency has submitted a false report or false information?
Because they were good. It's the responsibility of the commission, and that's
To
why,
determine-
if you read up, that's why we're making the responsibility of the commissioner, the commission to do due diligence to determine the accuracy of the report and the information that is submitted.
Yeah, but my question was, how do you determine whether or not that report was
I'm
false?
assuming that they are probably going to do a lot of, like for the instance, I don't want to use the city of Birmingham. There is a personnel board system. And I'm sure they will compare the information that they will receive with other reporting agencies or umbrellas that these individuals will fall under. For right now, for instance, at Aaliyah, right now, the city of Birmingham, I'm just using them as an example, are only showing 65 murders from last year.
65 what?
Murders.
Okay.
Well, Birmingham had almost 160 murders last year. Nobody has attempted to submit the last quarter or last 6 months of crime data, which should have been reported at the end of the year. So this commission, it gives them what happened in the committee meeting. The committee said they would like to see something with some teeth. Because if you don't, you're just going to get a report and nobody will do a check and balance. So this is a check and balance. I don't know what the commission will employ to determine that, but they have the responsibility of setting that criteria and how they will determine, what that will be. I'm not sure, but it states on the first page that will be their responsibility
I read
to employ.
that. And during the budget hearings, I did receive some information from the commission. The one thing I would like to think that what we're doing is not just partial, because we have two cities, both of that look as the only cities where there are crimes taking place. And it appears that that's where the focus seems to be. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I would say that most of these cities don't have 160 murders a year either.
Here recognized is the lady from Macon, Griffin Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Lady Yield, I haven't had a chance to really read in detail your bill, but I'm kind of confused listening to the conversations. What is the ultimate goal of what you're trying to achieve with this bill?
Municipalities should be reporting this information anyway, Representative Warren. We need to have the truth and accuracy in reporting, because as we're trying to figure out this maze of help within these municipalities, we don't even know what we're looking at. We don't even know, as Representative Treadaway said, how to even structure a real plan of action. Maybe it's more funding, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, but if you're stating that you have 700, 800 officers, and you really only have 380 officers, but you're reporting that, how do we know? How do we help? How do we know how to move? And it is a danger to communities when you do not report the accurate number of sworn law enforcement officers. Like I just said, listen, there is an expert criminologist that spoke on this issue that I listened to last night. An expert criminologist that spoke about the need to have transparency with these numbers. We're living in very, very dangerous times. And to stand up and say, we don't want the criminal to know, like I said, the criminals already know. And then most importantly, they don't care. If the truth be told, you have people right now committing major crimes in front of police headquarters. So now you tell me how that's going to, not giving a number to the commission or Aaliyah or what have you is going to stop them from doing anything because the criminals will know. Well, they'll know. That doesn't help.
I think that I understand what you're saying with the numbers, but I think that we really need to be dealing with the true problem, and that's the crime rate in these communities, because it makes no difference.
Well, listen, we
You know,
are. Let me say
and wait, let me finish this. Because
are.
I have seen over the years the decline in interest of people wanting to come to law enforcement. Okay?
Yes.
It's a problem.
Let me tell you why you have so much disinterest, and I'm glad you said that. Let me educate you on this. The reason you have so much more crime is because you do not have enough sworn officers in many of these places to police. The criminals know this, and because they know that you no longer have enough officers, like I mentioned last week, close to 60–70% of the crime killing in Birmingham is in the area in and around where the district I represent. Let me tell you what the problem is. It's called the West Side. The West Side of town encompasses at least over almost 50% of Birmingham's total population. It's not that the West Side of town is so bad. It is that the West Side of town is so dormant. And because it is so dormant, you have wider streets, you have a lot of dilapidated houses in between houses where you have a lot of seniors that live, but they're really quiet communities. It's not that the community is so bad, it is that it's so dormant. So if I'm going to commit a crime, I'm going to find these dormant pockets. Because guess what? I know there's no law enforcement. Whereas I have a precinct that should have 120-something law enforcement officers. So if you got a precinct that should staff 120, 140 officers, on any given night at that precinct, you only may have about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 officers that are working per night. So that in itself creates the clear and present danger. Most law enforcement officers are leaving because they have mayors who are running the police department. So I didn't want to get all technical. You cannot be the mayor of a city and run our police department. That is what we're seeing, and that is one of the biggest problems that is going on throughout some of the major cities in Alabama. No mayor should be appointing the chiefs, the assistant chiefs, or the deputy. They should have the capability to hire and to appoint whoever that chief may be, he or she. Then that chief has the responsibility of hiring its own top brass. In other words, their own deputies, own assistant or
I see what you're saying, but how are we in this document preventing that from happening?
Well, this bill is not addressing that. We have bills that are addressing all of those things that you're talking about. This bill won't address that, and it shouldn't.
Okay, yours is just a reporting.
This bill should not address that. Listen, I don't know if somebody's going to bring a bill. Someone had mentioned that they were considering bringing a bill that will change something about the structure of how police chiefs are selected and that there should be another layer. I don't know. I won't be bringing that piece of legislation. That's not for me to treat right now. But I think it would be something that I would give consideration to. But as it relates to the crime issues, people are killing, people are stealing, people are doing these things in a lot of these major cities because of the lackluster leadership that exists within. A lot of folks don't want to do it. Listen, I accept the fact that people are friends with folks. You have these people who are buddy-buddy, wrist to wrist, arm to arm. When you attempt to try to impart wisdom to these people that are in leadership, they freeze up, they do memes. I spoke out about a meeting that our sheriff called, and I just referenced what the sheriff said. Now, one of the news outlets kind of sort of in their reporting, they didn't quite report it out. And that was when Sheriff Mark Petway called a meeting in March about the crime, and he simply called us in and said, listen, we have a problem. I don't have enough deputies. If something happens in the city of Birmingham, then he said if something catastrophic happens, and that was something I said in the news, and lo and behold, I only repeated what happened in the meeting. And I only said if something catastrophic, and AL.com, Greg Garrison, he wrote the story. He called me and he knew I had said that. He saw it on the news on WVRC. And I simply said, if something catastrophic happens, there's not enough sworn deputies to help because the sheriff said that, yada, yada, yada. And we've got to come up with something. And to close it out.
Well, see, I think I hear you, and I hear you talking about the larger cities. But I hate to tell you, in these small rural counties where the rates, the killings are just unreal.
It's unreal.
We will have one, if we're good to have one officer on duty.
And like I said, but I think people have to accept responsibility as leaders and stop taking it as a criticism. Stop doing these ridiculous pressers out there to every day or every other day with these pop-ups because you're trying to bolster your position. And if they would listen to people such as myself or Treadaway or whomever, anyone that knows this situation, we would be able to keep officers. That's number one, because it would not be where the person in leadership, a chief executive officer of that particular municipality, whatever reason, is running that department. You will be able to keep law enforcement officers. But right now, we have so many law enforcement officers that are overworked, they're taxed, they are tired, they are frustrated. You have officers in some places that are now sitting on calls. I said to a group the other night, I get it. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. But if I'm a 28-year-old father, and I have a 3-year-old or a 3-month-old or a 2-day-old baby, and I have a new bride at home, and I know it's going to take, in most instances, 10 to 15 minutes for someone to get to me, because I signed up for a force. I signed up for a police force. I didn't sign up to be a part
Okay,
of one.
we're getting ready to run out of time. All I want us to do is to find a solution that we can resolve the shortage of officers. We got to find ways to encourage people to get into law enforcement, because when I talk to officers, they always tell me, look, the criminals got better weapons than we got. Why am I get out there?
I agree.
So we got to find a way. If we want to get
Lady's time has
done,
expired.
we got
Chair
to find a way.
recognizes the lady from Montgomery,
I wholeheartedly
Representative
agree.
Morris.
What the gentlelady yield. So it was, I'm not going to take that long. I just got a couple questions. When I heard you say something about the police chief and the mayor, and the police chief should not be responding or reporting to the mayor, or the mayor should not be.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, what did you say?
We were talking about almost a line of succession. I said no mayor should be appointing the top brass for a chief that they have been that has
Okay,
been
now let's
appointed.
put a pin right there. Who should do it?
The police chief serves as a department head.
But who should be selecting the police chief?
I don't think there's an issue with the mayor selecting the police chief.
So what is the issue when you said the mayor and the police chief, or the line of succession that you just said?
I said that a mayor should not be appointing the top brass of a police chief.
Now I'm asking you who should.
The police chief.
So the police chief. So who would the police chief report to?
The mayor.
The mayor.
The police chief is a department head.
Yes.
So if in most instances with department heads, the department head hires their own if they have the power to appoint. And most police chiefs have the power to pick their own top brass. That's a known thing across law enforcement. That's solid. That's just how it is. And where we're finding in many instances, in certain municipalities, police chiefs are not picking their own top brass. These people are being selected.
So now let me ask you this.
That's eroding the morale.
So has this always been taking place, or is this something new now. Is this something that the mayor has always been doing over the years, or is this something that just been put in place?
In the city of Birmingham, it started about 8 years ago.
About 8 years ago that the mayor took over putting that in place with.
I'm not saying anyone's taking over, but I kn- that they have been appointing, yes.
Okay,
8
but
years.
if someone else was already appointed, and then the mayor turns around and make himself the person to appoint, that means I took it. I took it from you and I made myself appoint that person. So I'm asking,
I'm confused.
you know,
I'm confused.
okay, so I know we have shortage of police officers, right? We got a shortage of police officers. We got a shortage of teachers. We got a shortage of
Yeah, I
firemen.
think somebody's
We got a
bringing a drop
shortage
bill.
of military. I'm just trying to see, are we gonna have all of the people that we are short across the state to be able to?
I certainly hope we will. I think somebody's gonna bring a drop bill where they're gonna, because we're about to lose not quite half of a lot of the teachers that we have in the next 2 or 3 years, but I think they're bringing something for that in that number, and I think
Okay,
they're working up. Yeah.
that's it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure, thanks, lady. The question for the body now is passage of HB 287 as amended. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will vote. Clerk will lock the machine, record the votes. 86 ayes, 0 nays, 14 abstentions. HB 287 is passed as amended. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Mobile, Pro Tem Pringle. And I think before you say anything, we gonna say happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Pro Tem. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. And with
You
that,
almost got it snuck in before we got it stopped.
my birthday present to you is, Mr. Speaker, I move the House stand in adjournment until Thursday at 10 a.m.
Yep, Thursday at 10 a.m. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.